I'm Felix Levine, and welcome to Unlike Me, where I sit down with fascinating people I have nothing in common with. And we're live. Noah, thank you so much for taking the time, coming on my show. I'm super excited to meet you, talk to you, have you on. I think there's a lot of similarities, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Good to be here.
What's something the world doesn't know about you from what's already out there?
Terrible stage fright since I was a kid. Which is ironic because when I was a kid, I got into DJing hip-hop nightclubs. So it was immediately kind of this act of trying to confront or stupid idea of constantly putting myself in a state of anxiety. My mother gave me advice because I used to get like literally, even now, even today, after all I have to take a deep breath, heart palpit, you know what I mean? My mother said, you're just a vessel for the music, which was incredibly humbling and clarifying in the moment. And then I just got right back to terrified, stage fright. And now, don't fuck up. That's my...
Oh.
The team was asking me, what's your mantra? Don't fuck it up.
Why is it don't fuck it up?
I don't want to fuck it up.
Because it's going too well? Or is it because you...
No, I don't like to fuck anything up. I'm very competitive. It's just what it is.
So do you think the stage fright was more in verbal speaking? Because DJing, you don't have to...
It's definitely more acute with speaking. Less like this. Like if I'm on stage,
right.
mic, I always do fireside chats without the fire. And that's because it's, I think it's more interesting also than just standing up there like but like TED Talk, mic.
Interesting.
Yeah. It just, I don't know what, and by the way, I don't know what it is. I'm a student of psychology. It's very deep in the unconscious.
What's very interesting about you and just speaking to you for like 5 minutes is you have a very strong presence and aura to you. So find it fascinating that the someone might not know that could be something you deal with.
Actually, my whole team seems surprised, and we're both surprised.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're surprised? I'm surprised.
As well.
Everybody's surprised. It's like the eggs. Yeah. I can only make one thing, and they say, not even eggs.
Yeah, there you go.
Everybody says not even eggs. No, not even eggs. But yeah, everybody's surprised.
So we have a couple similarities about each other. Both came up in the public school system, and both played tennis competitively.
Yeah.
Competitively growing up. And so we saw the juxtaposition in the New York City public school system specifically, and then also the New York City elites at tennis practice, which for me was, many times a week at Randall's Island, John McEnroe's Academy. So I saw not just the rich kids, like the richest of the rich, the ones that are 9 years old with the driver waiting outside for them after practice, the ones that, did not have the same experience that I did growing up. For you, what was it about, and what is it about, I think, being a New York City public schooler that I think that you take pride in from what I can gauge in the couple minutes of being with you?
I definitely take pride in it. I definitely call people out when they say they're from New York. This is a hilarious thing with all my friends. By the way, anybody who says they're from Chicago is never from Chicago. Fact, 100% of the time, not from Chicago. Where in Chicago did you grow up? Oh, like an hour outside. And it's the same in New York City. What's crazy about New York City is you get other states.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, oh, you're from
New
New York?
Does Westchester count?
No.
Thank you.
You have to qualify. But I grew up in New Jersey. And I'm like, no, that's a different state. That's not even New York.
Yeah.
But no, if you grew up in Ithaca, sorry, everybody from Long Island, you have to qualify. And what happens now...
5 boroughs? 5 boroughs.
Yeah. Even Staten Island counts.
That's like
I think you might, if you're from, you might have to say, but Staten Island.
Yeah.
But now what happened is in response to this, I have to say I'm from New York City, Manhattan, East Village, and I have to spend all the time, I think it's just, when someone asks me like, how do you identify, which is a big question today, I identify as a New Yorker. And I had really good parents who raised me. Mm-hmm. So I say this without trying to offend them, but also New York City raised me. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? I think the thing I go to is it was a tough place. You know, growing up in the city at the time, maybe less now. I don't know. Is it just?
I mean, I know you're not a day over 25, but to specify when was exactly?
The 50s, the 90s,
yeah,
80s and 90s. You know, and yeah, it was a tough place. And I think when you grow up in that kind of environment and you figure out how to navigate all of the complexity, it's not just a tough place, it's an incredible place. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere thing. When you navigate through that experience as a kid, you know, the assaults on the street, all the things that you get in New York City, the incredible people, the culture, all of that, you know, by 18 years old, you've earned a badge.
Right. And
to me, you can't just take that badge when you're from Patterson. Also, Patterson is I take that back. Somewhere else in New Jersey, not Patterson. All the people from Patterson are like, it's actually a tough place.
I'm also curious because you went to Fieldston for high school.
Yeah.
Now, me and my girlfriend's big debate. So she grew up Upper West Side.
Yeah.
She went to private school her whole life.
Yeah.
And it's always our big beef in the future one day when we have kids on like public school versus private school. You know, I'm public school through and through.
Yeah.
What was it like going from public school, I guess K through the 8, and
through
then
8, yeah.
9 through 12, the high school, the private high school, and how different is it? And Fieldston, I know, is a particular one.
It's a particular one. It was a big shift, but it was as small of a shift as you could get going from a public school to a private school, because they prided themselves on all types of kids. It's a big scholarship school, so it's kids from everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was a big change. A lot of kids that I then entered ninth grade with came up because Fieldston is K through 12, so it had come up through. Right. But even some of the kids who had come up in Fieldston were different. They felt like public school kids, actually. Mm-hmm. So there was a real mix. I mean, there were some kids who were really, but nothing like the tennis world. And when you say that, I got a little bit of the chills, because that's a whole thing. Like,
I mean, it's like, and it also, it's interesting, and I'm curious if you had the same thing, is as a public schooler, it almost became like a hatred for them. Because so Beacon, where I went, we also had one of the best tennis teams in the nation as a high school. It was like, it's from New York Times articles written about it. Like it was a whole thing. And so I kind of like walked around with the swagger. Like I came from Beacon. Like we're better than you guys at tennis. Like, but it was always the Horace Mann, the Riverdale kids, the Trinity kids that I was just like, fuck them. I hate you. Yeah. They came in with 6 coaches. Yeah. We had our coach, shout out to Baird, who came in with his jeans. He was our history teacher. Like it was just a completely different energy, but it was always like, yo, fuck those kids. Like I actually had a hatred for them. And I think that's why even me and my girlfriend joke about it now, but it's a real thing. It's like where you see the disparities at the highest levels, I think, even in New York City. Mm-hmm. Is that similar to?
Yeah. Definitely the tennis scene was that the juxtaposition was crazy. I don't think as a kid, for me, actually, when I transport myself back, I think I was just so focused on being great at tennis that I was less focused on these kind of asshole kids. There were moments with the crazy parents, you know, the kids throwing tantrums, that whole scene that I would crack a racket every now and then, don't get me, but I would do it. I thought I did it in like a public school way. Right. Quiet, my own space. It wasn't it wasn't for anyone else to see, even though people saw it. It was for me to crack.
Right.
But it was but that juxtaposition what I didn't realize, I think, as much, like when I sit here now and reflect on life and career, it was so informative, you know, and it was so, it so defined what became important to me. Actually, not to, I mean, I know you're asking the questions, but to fast forward, actually, there was a point in my life where someone said, "What's your purpose?" And I don't think it's ordained, but what do you want it to be? And then I was like, that's a great question. How have I not answered that for myself? Actually, I ask a lot of people, and most people haven't answered that for themselves. Write it down. And it wrote itself. And I think level the playing field. When I wrote it, it went all the way back to those experiences. Like, oh, you went to school with public school kids in the day, and then at night you played tennis with the wealthiest kids in Manhattan. You saw both sides. You saw the inequities and, you know, between them. And so leveling, it was so instantly apparent.
So, and my last story with regards to this tennis, and this relates to exactly to what you're saying. And this was honestly one of the weird, you know, those small moments in life that like put things into perspective. So I remember I was at practice, and you know, you're joking around with everyone, and because you're bored or tired, and it's like 8 o'clock, you're sick of this, and I'm like, guys, like, how good does like just straight chicken, rice, and beans sound right now? Like from like your
even
local,
right now,
like yeah, right, even right now, like from, you know, like your local spot, like your local Dominican spot, and they go, and I swear to you, 3 of them at the same time, and almost, I felt like I was in a movie. They go, beans.
Beans are great. Beans are hugely healthy.
And I go, what? I go, what's wrong with beans? And they go, like, one of them's like, it's from a can. And I just started to realize that, like, they've never been to Sunset Park at the Dominican place. They've never, like, me and my best friend who grew up here as well, we love the $11 meal, you know, with the authentic, like, this, and they just, we weren't eating the same things, we weren't talking to the same people. And that for me was about the playing field. I was like, we just have different experiences. And I think going back to what you're saying, and also we'll get into it, of course, Acorns' mission, it makes sense that you're in the position that you're in today with the mission that you have today. When did you know that was it playing tennis that you knew you wanted to level the playing field, or was there something after that prompted you and confirmed that thought that this would be one of maybe your life missions?
By the way, I think a lot of beans come from cans at some point.
I think most.
Yeah, I don't know, but definitely a lot. Like I'm always surprised to find out that they were in a can at some point.
Yeah.
In their journey. Yeah. No, I had no idea that. Honestly, I didn't consciously know until I wrote it.
How old are you when you wrote it?
30s, like early 30s, and I think by the way, when you sit down with a pen, or I don't know if when you sit down with whatever you write with, and just let it come out.
Yeah.
You know, like back to my mother, so you're just a vessel for the music. Let it come out. All brilliant artists and creative people, and I'm not ascribing that to myself at all, but like the content comes out, the material just comes out. If you watch the Bob Marley movie, I think he wrote Exodus on the spot. If you have to think, you're blocking your creativity. You know, you're standing in the way of your unconscious to your conscious, and just like let it come out. So if you sit down and just write and don't think, don't get in the way of your own honesty, it will be much easier to find your truth. So that for me was like, that was a huge moment, and it felt really honest and authentic. And then it became a filter. So helpful to have a filter, like, or multiple filters when you're thinking about the things you want to do professionally, otherwise, you know, once you've identified that thing, now it's a filter and a lens through which you can view all the decisions you make. Am I doing what's authentic to my self-defined purpose, or is it inauthentic? And if it's inauthentic, there's going to be some sort of dissonance. You feel it, you don't, maybe it manifests in health. I don't know, but there's going to be dissonance, and dissonance is bad.
When you were younger, did you ever imagine that you would be doing what you're doing today?
Zero. Like
when you were DJing at 14, was it like you the goal was to DJ full time when you were older?
No, I don't think it was I don't think it was a goal at that point to do. I think it was a creative pursuit.
Okay.
And then definitely like my dreams started to emerge as, oh, this is going to lead to producing. I'm going to start a record label. You know, that would be
Right.
That's the progression. My road has been windy.
But even like with what you just said, that's from the lens of an entrepreneurial spirit. Did you have that
Always.
growing up?
Always.
Okay.
Like my parents said and we don't have that in the family really. So my parents said like you came out almost that way. Competitive.
Yeah.
Like my dad, I started playing tennis when I was 2.5, sawed off racket. My dad would drop the ball wrong and I'd get mad at him. Just, what? Why can't you drop the ball? Like I was, you know what I mean? So yeah, it wasn't.
What did your parents do?
My dad was, well, he says he was the first corporate social responsibility officer. So he did Peace Corps worked in the banking industry, but did it was called community development, which meant he invested the bank's money in philanthropy.
Okay.
So he did the 42nd Street Festival.
Right.
Things like that. And then he moved to the nonprofit world and did development there. So Museum of Natural History, things like this. So my dad was very much like ironically, he was a philanthropic person in the banking industry, which is an anathema. Kind of.
Yeah.
My mother was in publishing.
Okay.
And advertising. So she ended up managing Book of the Month Club. She was an editor at Random House. You know, she managed child development toys. But she did, so all that. So, but the truth is, both of them were, and my father is still here, but creative people that had little business being in the business world. And my mother's advice to me, career advice to me, was never go into business. I very much carry that with me because I know what she meant. And I think my sort of take on that, the way I've tried to run with that great advice, is there's so much wrong with business. It's so soulless. You're going to be confronted by so many people who don't have the values you have, or maybe any values.
Right.
Right. So do it differently. Do it differently at every level.
How do you do it differently at every level? You personally. And have you in the past as well?
Yeah,
Both current and coming up.
So take Acorns, how we do Acorns. Everything Acorns starts with the mission of the company, the values of the company, trying to put the right products, the responsible tools of wealth making in everybody's hands, and not putting the wrong products in people's hands. We have a mantra at the company, which is your money first, ours next. That's a very different philosophy than financial services at large.
Right.
Financial services is our money first, maybe we'll think about yours at some point. We're not in the product categories where you make the most money. We are in the business of helping people save as much money as possible. So even the business model that we have, which is a subscription model, we thought really hard about, like, can we come up with a customer aligned business model that doesn't make money, that doesn't monetize bad behavior. What's bad behavior? Credit, borrowing, trading. I don't think people really understand how bad trading is. I mean, people do. Some people do. A lot of people I talk to do not discern the difference between investing and trading. Trading is buying in and out. Investing is having a diversified portfolio, sticking with it for the long term. The real magic of investing is compounding. Right? Compounding doesn't happen when you trade in and out of the market. Every time you trade, you break the compounding cycle. So that's
Will you explain for a novice why that is?
So basically compound interest is your money grows on top of itself when it's invested in the market, because you're generating returns and then the returns build on the returns, right? So if you keep your money in the market for 40 years, let's say, or here's an example. If you're a parent and you invest $5 a day in your child beginning at birth, by retirement, that $5 is going to be $4.5 million. The actual amount of money that you will have invested is very small. And the reason that is because money builds on top of itself. So we're talking about compounding at an 8% annual compound rate, interest rate. Every time you trade, if you buy something, first of all, buying stocks is gambling on one particular stock. Why would you do that if you can have a diversified portfolio? If you can effectively ask the question, if you could own the entire American economy versus betting on one company in the American economy, why would you do one company? People would say, well, if you had bet on Nvidia, several years ago, that would have been a good bet. Yeah, but this is not about like isolated examples. Right. This is about generally having a diversified portfolio is what wins. When you trade out, when you take your money out of the market, you literally broke compounding. You're no longer invested. And I'll give you a crazy statistic. In the last 40 years, if you had been out of the market on just 5 days, one of them was in 87, the other one was in 2000. There were 2 in 2008, and there were 2 in 2020, 2 days. So that's 5 days. You would have lost a third of the value of your money. Just 5 days. By the way, all those days were during downturns, which is when you're most inclined to pull your money out of the market. So trading is gambling. Investing is having a long-term, disciplined, patient approach to managing your money.
Now, what do you say to someone that would say, because look, I even remember, I think Beacon was actually one of the more progressive schools in teaching us about compound interest, very similar examples to what you said about birth or when you're 18 and retirement. But I always thought, like, is there anyone that's actually ever done this, like fully all the way through from either their child's birth up until their retirement? Like, because we all, like, mathematically, we all know that these things are true, but there's something so interesting about human beings is that sometimes they know something to be so true and so good, but they just don't do it. Mm-hmm. Why? Why is it that, why is it that we are like that from your POV? And B, are there good examples, even maybe at Acorns, of people that have kind of really invested as opposed to traded and stuck to the process and trusted the process? And I'm curious to get your response to that.
I don't mean to oversimplify the answer, but I think the answer to your question is wealthy people. This is how wealthy people make money. I mean, wealthy people tend to make money making money, right, but then they make their real money on their money.
Right.
I don't actually think most people, and it's becoming more, I think awareness is growing more and more because people have access to information in a way now that they didn't before, and the investing boom,
and it's made easy now.
Yeah, and the last 10 years, the collective awareness about these topics has grown a lot. So it's very different. But I still think the vast majority of people, don't actually really know how to do this. And what gets in the way is our emotions.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. Warren Buffett says all this stuff the best. He's always the best at all this stuff. But, basically, just about everybody, myself included, and I did this early on in my life, let's panic guide their decisions. The hard thing to do is when the market dives 40% and you just lost 40% on your money, is to remember that every downturn in history has ended in an upturn. Yeah. And actually, so I'm the beneficiary of it over the last 15 years. Particularly over the last 10 with Acorns, like these mantras that I have, every downturn has ended in an upturn. Yeah. Don't fuck it up. This is when the market took a nosedive in 20. Mm-hmm. It was in March.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
It was really steep. It was like 30. I don't remember exactly. It was 35%. I remember
they had to stop halting
the
market
trading
like 3 times that day.
Right. So it was like, whew, and I was pacing around. And by the way, this is in no way any financial advice to anybody, but I took all the cash I had on hand and invested it because the market went on a massive sale.
Yeah.
But what I didn't do was touch any money I had invested.
Right.
So I didn't break the compounding cycle.
Right.
I just took every dollar of cash, basically, just about, that I had sitting liquid and plowed it into the market. And what happened with that money? It's gone up, I don't know, 50 to 100% now.
Yeah.
So when the market goes down, it's on sale, but stick with it. Do not pull your money out of the market unless you absolutely have to.
What have you noticed about, let's say, the majority of the Acorns community and clientele? Because I think your products, and there's multiple of them, and we can talk about them. I mean, it's made for a certain type of person, I think. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious from your POV, what that type of person looks like.
It's the middle class. That's who Acorns is built for, who we focus on. As a product, it's definitely built for people who want to outsource their money management. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think that should be everybody, and I don't mean everybody should use Acorns. I mean everybody should put their money in and turn away. There's a saying: the best investor is a dead investor.
Yeah. Yep.
Because when you're dead, you can't make any more bad decisions.
I almost, especially when I'll have more cash and it's like you put it and you tell someone the passcode and tell them to change it while you're at it.
Yeah.
And tell them I'll come and pick up this piece of paper in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now.
Yeah. We have one of our sayings is it's not our saying, it's actually but one of our mantras is investing is a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. That sort of does a nice job of, and one of our plans is to sponsor the New York City Marathon and give $1 more to the person who comes in last, which I think is that's hilarious, but also effective, hopefully. Yeah. But to your point, this is like a year out, so my team is just going to go bananas when they see this. Sorry. I'd like to have a feature in the product called Marathon Mode. And if you turn on Marathon Mode, you lock yourself out of your Acorns app and all you see is like the squirrel running up the graph.
I love that.
Right? Because play dead.
And what's funny? So I'm literally just remembering this now. I think the first time I was on Acorns was maybe about the time that you got involved, when I was like 14 or 15. Mm-hmm. And I think I had invested, I turned on, maybe it was $1 a day or $1 something.
Yeah.
And I remember like a few years later, I like really needed cash for some reason. I'm like, I have it in my Acorns, and I pulled it out, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, just telling you.
Nice.
But I always remembered Acorns, and I always remembered those graphs, the potential. Like I remembered, it's almost like I knew all of these things were good, and even at younger and maybe, younger than some, but it's so much rooted in psychology and patience and understanding. Like, is that the hardest part for you guys? Is getting humans to almost fight back, I think, instinctual human behaviors?
Of course. I tell the company we're in the business of managing emotions. We're not like, what is money? Money is a total abstraction. Like it's not a I mean, well, if you have it's very much no longer a physical thing, but it's not the currency is emotions, and most of the emotions wrapped up in money, fear, anxiety, shame, embarrassment, the drivers of a lot of bad things in relationships, domestic abuse, violence, depression. It is the culprit in a lot of bad things. And, I mean, how does this is fundamentally trying to manage human psychology and be a psychologist as a product, and when you're talking about emotions like fear, like panic, how do you build a product that has defenses against those things? What we're trying to get people to do, like the emotional space that we try to inhabit, is hope. Mm-hmm. Have a long-term view, have hope for the future. Don't respond to your short-term anxieties. And it's just really difficult. So the question is, like, what do we do, I think, to confront, those emotions? And the answer is everything we do. in the
Right.
the product
Right.
is meant to confront those negative emotions and try to move you into a future facing orientation.
How do you manage your own emotions as it pertains to money?
That's a great question. The mantras, because the emotions are there. Like I was telling you, and that that day, the panic, the anxiety. I think you're probably a sociopath if you're confronted by a 35% spike downward in the market and you just have no feelings about it. So I think it's the mantras that become part of your consciousness. So every downturn in history has ended in an upturn. Like if I can really remember that in the face of my own natural anxieties that are just like everybody else's, I stand a fighting chance. And that has helped. Investing is a marathon, not a sprint. The best investor is a dead investor. Like just go to sleep when you wake up in the morning. You know what I mean? So psychology also helps, doing therapy also helps, but yeah.
How much did these things mean to you before you joined Acorns? And for context, I believe we worked before, or you?
For a minute. I got involved we launched in 14.
And you became
at the end of 14.
And you got involved immediately.
Yeah, right away. So it was early. It was really early. How much what was it?
Well, how much did these mantras mean to, or did they mean anything to you, or were you not thinking about them before you joined?
I don't think I had them. I definitely didn't have them top of mind. It wasn't like a toolkit.
Right.
So now I try to pass that on.
Right.
I mean, I did have the good fortune, like in my 20s, I was very conservative because I grew up, my mother, who was brilliant, hard charging, had meltdowns in ATM machines.
Right.
It was just so over. So I grew up around real money anxiety. Mm-hmm. And in my 20s, I was very conservative. And I probably would say I missed out on a decade of compounding. I had the good fortune of getting a financial advisor who helped me turn away. It's like move from a 90% bond portfolio. I mean, literally, that's what you're talking. Yeah. We're talking about that kind of character. Yeah. We're in the Acorns conservative portfolio. Like that's where I'm living.
Right.
A lot of coaching, a lot of discussions, and we try to automate all of that for people and make that accessible to everybody. You know what I'm saying? So
when you came on to Acorns, were you immediately CEO, or what you came on? I think there was investor advisor, and at least from online.
Yeah.
And then you kind of got involved in that role?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a period. Jeff, the co-founder, and I got to know each other quite well. We actually ended up starting another company in 2017 together called Say. But we just hit it off. We hit it off on vision, design, aesthetics, taste. And he was early on in his career, hadn't managed a company like at this level. So we just made that decision.
How quickly did the company grow? Because for a 14 or 15-year-old at the time, myself, to know about it, use it, like,
yeah,
you got to be doing something right.
Yeah.
When did you know that and when did it start to grow?
I mean, the idea of investing spare change took off pretty quickly because it's something everybody can hang on to.
It's also very sexy marketing.
Yeah, and everybody has it. I mean, the more relatable it is, the more, right? It's like you have it in your pocket. I can part with it.
And at the time, more so at the time, people actually had coins. So they knew what it's like to have 24 cents and be like, what the fuck do I do with this?
Right, correct. Now kids are like, what is spare? What?
They're like, what's a coin?
What's a coin? We have to, yeah. I'm going to take a note. Yeah.
You're welcome.
But yeah, that idea resonated for sure. I mean, for sure. It was immediately understandable. And the challenge that we were trying to confront was, how do you make something as complex, confusing, and overwhelming as investing easy? Spare change.
I mean, it was, I remember as a 14, 15-year-old, it was seeing those graphs.
Yeah.
And it was what you're saying, it was hope.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I then struggled with as the Acorns user was patience.
Yeah.
Was understanding, when you're, let's say even 17 or 18, thinking about when you're 65, as I did, as an ambitious young person, is I'm good. I'll figure it out when I'm 30s anyways, and I'll actually make up the time.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes probably a lot of people are still guilty of thinking that way, right? You know what? If if I invest the money here and I invest all of myself, then it'll pay off and I'll be able to catch up. And, this, that, the third. And I think there's a lot of wrong things about that. But I think it's so fascinating because it's almost like universally, how could you argue that this is not an excellent product? And I think that's why you guys are doing so well. But then it's like nonstop, what you're saying, combating emotions, combating psychology, combating desires, combating disasters, combating everything. But you guys are here.
Yeah. I mean, we also leaned hard into the brand because one of the things I love about Acorns is it's an idea. It's not just a company, it's an idea. The idea,
it's a story too.
It's a story, exactly. It's the story and idea of tiny acorns growing into mighty oaks. That's the story of growth.
Yeah.
It's the story of compounding. It's the story of hope. It's the story of all of us. So we also really leaned into that as a concept. And I think in technology, it's a very clinical industry. There's a lot of companies and brands devoid of emotion. The people are a little bit devoid of emotion, but we really went into that and tried to make this something that people could relate to.
How many people work at Acorns now?
So it's 800 basically total. Yeah.
All around the world or just in the country?
All around the world, and we're remote, so all across the country. We're in 40 states now, 40-ish states.
Is Acorns used all over the world?
It's primarily so the Acorns product is in the US. We did a deal not that long ago to acquire a company out of the UK called
I saw that.
Yeah, Go Henry, which is the leading kids money product.
Okay.
In the UK. And then a company called PixPay in Europe, which is in France.
Yep.
Spain and Italy, and that's a teen money product. And the reason we've done this, sort of going back to like we very much focused for the first chapter of our journey on the individual customer, and then decided that we wanted to serve the family. And this is a big open space and big opportunity, and money is a family affair. So why not have a financial wellness for the family, basically? So we wanted to serve kids beginning at birth, starting at 6 or 7. We could help get them involved, help them start learning about money and financial literacy. Growing up, 18, you graduate to Acorns, et cetera, you become parents, and then the sort of cycle continues.
In the 10 years since you've gotten involved, are there success stories of parents that have been strong enough to stay consistent with when they first opened up their account in 2014 to diligently deposit those, whether it's $5 a day or however much they decide? Are there people that have done that?
Yeah. We have customers all the way back from the beginning.
So cool.
We launched in August 2014. There's and you can see one of the great things about Acorns is our customers like by 6 months in, once you've made the decision that you're going to stick with it, you're pretty committed. So there are so-called cohorts from every month going all the way back. And like that's, again, back to the purpose of compounding. All those people didn't break the cycle. I mean, some of them you can withdraw, but like, yeah.
And what types of accounts are the most popular at Acorns? And then also as it pertains, like if someone's listening or watching right now and they're wondering about the, tax aspects of it. Mm-hmm. How's that work?
I mean, the most popular feature is a recurring investment by the week. I like to do it by the day. I think by the day is great. Like if you could do $5 a day.
So you tell yourself, make your coffee at home, and there you go.
Exactly. And it's just, it adds up to an incredible amount of money over time.
Not to interrupt you, have you guys done because I think especially now, a campaign around like literally make your coffee at home and that's your Acorns deposit? Because like it somehow comes up on my TikTok feed every single day, but it's literally about like people don't realize how much money they spend on something as silly as coffee.
Yeah, we actually we did a little bit of the opposite, which is you can have your coffee and invest your spare change too.
Okay.
Because one of the insights early on is the industry had long talked about parting with your coffee. People don't like to part with their coffee, so that's the roundup feature. But yeah, we have played with that and it works really well. So like $5 a day. Right. $25 a week. That's the most popular feature. Acorns Later, which we launched, a few years in, which is our retirement product. We called it Later because we wanted to retire the word retire and thought it was old, and also realized a lot of people don't actually plan to retire. By the way, a lot of people don't think they're going to be able to retire. Yep. So we call it Later, money invested for later. That's tax advantaged. So that's a great way to set aside $5,500, $6,500 a year, and you should max it out. But I'm really a big fan of I think $5 a day is easy to connect to. It's not everybody can do it, but a lot of people can.
It's almost like $1,800 a year, or
yeah, neighborhood. Something like that. Exactly, a little bit more. But we have a goddaughter. She's got a Acorns Early. So Acorns Early is the kids product.
Okay.
By the way, that's expanding beyond just being an investing account for parents to invest in their kids to a holistic kids product. But yeah, we started right away. You have to. I mean, you kind of shouldn't leave the well, you should have this ready as soon as your kid is born, as soon as you have your kid's social security number, because you need that to do it. But every day matters.
Right.
Investing is not just about how long you do it, but of course, how soon you start. And the sooner the better is a 100% fact.
What motivates you? Like what is it about Noah himself that, gets up out of bed every morning? Because now at this point, I mean, let's call a spade, right? Like, I'm sure you're doing fine. Like there's, why do you continue? Why are you here? Like, why do you continue to do it?
Yeah, I started 3 companies by 30, and I had some success, with exits. And
which was your first exit?
Noise.
Okay, I believe actually I have a friend that works. There's still a company now, right? It's the Mark.
It's got merged. So the company that acquired it merged it into another.
Okay.
So there's still probably some of the same people, but so by pretty early I had made money DJing. Don't get me wrong, like it was real money, but I had made real money pretty early, and I think I take a lot of pride about getting into the money business having already made money.
Yeah.
Because I think almost universally you get into the money business to make money, and I think that's part of the problem, right?
Right.
So my getting into this space was very much like, this needs to change. You can put the customer first and build a good business, and you can build something that has real values and purpose. But it wasn't about lining my pockets, and that's a very like.
How do you stay grounded after an exit?
It's just, that's not even a
personality. It's just a personality trait.
Yeah, my parents raised me to keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Roots, wings too, but always roots.
And your wife does she work?
We have an organization called Give Kids Art that she started, and this.
I heard about this.
Yeah,
it's really cool. Please tell people.
Yeah, it delivers art programming to kids through the Boys and Girls Club, plus art kits. So when the pandemic hit, like, and everybody was at home, programming had to go virtual, but also you had to get supplies to the kids. So it delivers art kits to kids at home, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see the impact on kids and creativity, and that goes all the way back to my childhood, where creativity and the arts were a huge part. And I know how much that impacted me and helped me confront fear. And these are kids who grow up in tough spaces, Yeah. So,
how long you guys been together?
8 years.
And how have you guys grown through? 8 years is a long time, and you see a lot of phases of someone's life. Have you guys grown together, and how has she helped you grow?
She's a very nurturing person. So I think equal parts supports me in my crazy work obsessions. and tries to keep me grounded in the smaller things. What's important, takes space. I hate using the word balance because it's become such a ridiculous cliche, but have some of that, that's not been a thing for me. So she helps. She's also totally creative. And so we share that inspiration, I think, and orientation toward creativity.
How do you still find creativity in what's known, at least, as a very rigid industry? But Acorns is much more, seemingly, far more creative than like most financial service platforms ever.
Yeah, we're a creative company.
Yeah.
We actually, I don't know this for a fact, but I think that we're the only company that's done this. We took every creative function in the company, including product design, brand advertising, education, content, consolidated it under one person, and it reports directly to me. So we are a creative company, and I don't want to say this in any way because we do lead with a lot of things. We lead with technology, but we very much also lead with creativity. We very much lead with creativity. So from the brand to the experience, it's an ideas-based, story-based,
Do you think about what's your future with Acorns? How long do you want to be on this journey? Because, I think as an entrepreneur, you've already started and exited. You've started this, or part of the beginnings of this. Like,
it's merged with my identity. So back to the purpose, it's level the playing field. This is like, what wrote itself. So this is doing that I say it this way, for as long as Acorns wants me, I think I'll be involved in Acorns.
Do you think it's feasible that in this country, specifically this country, there will ever be are you just fighting an unwinnable fight?
Meaning the
playing field, many would argue, will never be level.
It may be an unwinnable fight. It's a fight worth fighting nonetheless. I don't think we're going to make America an even playing field. Like, that's ridiculous,
Right.
Like, Acorns is not going to do that. But we can sure play a part in helping, whether it's a mindset or actually taking the steps and staying committed to changing, your life for yourself and your family. It sure seems like the sides are getting further apart. It doesn't seem like it. It is. The sides are getting further apart. And, that story of wealth gap, immense wealth gap, doesn't end well. But how can you not fight that fight? I mean, you have to fight that fight. So do I think it's winnable? I think it's probably a ridiculous thing to say that it's winnable.
Right. But I think to be fair, it's like, even if that continues to widen, and it likely will, it kind of gives you guys more opportunities in a sense, because anything that's not the top is now has an opportunity. Like, these are actually the customers that you want in a way, right? You want that person that might have not a lot of money, but at least is thinking about their future and having a little bit more money.
And that's the story of the middle class over the last several decades. It's
Right.
but yeah, we definitely want to ride it out with this group and help make sure they have as much as they can as they get older. The situation for people retiring, I mean, the statistics are terrible right now, right? Like, this, like, half of the country at retirement age doesn't have any retirement savings.
What do they do?
That's really tough.
They just work until they die?
Yeah. I mean, back to like rebranding a retirement account Acorns later.
Right.
It's not good. Hopefully they keep using Acorns, because every bit helps.
Right. I guess that's my question. Like, if you're listening right now and you're 60 and you haven't saved for retirement, like, I think probably one of the issues too is that there comes a point for people, and I'm sure it's not even 60. I'm sure there's people either in 40 and 50 who are like, fuck it. I heard
It's too late.
I heard Noah talk about, well, I should have started when I was 18. I'm 25 years deep. Like, it's not really going to make much of a difference.
You should start now. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are. It does matter how old you are. The success story, matters how old you are. But you should start now. If you're 40, 50, 60, 70, you don't, by the way, nobody has any idea how long they're going to live.
Right.
Nobody has any idea in 20 years from now how long we're all going to live. So you might be 50 and have 100 years. You don't know.
Right.
But everybody should start now. No question.
What are you personally most proud of? It doesn't even have to be related to Acorns. I mean, it can be.
I'll say in regards to Acorns, and I mean, this is in regards to me too, in this company having a real sense of integrity.
How do you do it?
I just follow my compass, the compass that my parents set for me, the compass that New York City set for me. And I just follow it, and I follow it. I try to follow it with courage. And that's just an internal thing.
You're the leader of an 800-person company. Does that ever scare you?
Sure. But I don't really think about it. Back to having my 2 feet
right
on the ground. It's not really something I think about. I'm not a big celebrator. I think I think my parents raised me to be a pretty humble person. So the feet are on the ground. Yeah, managing 800 people is that, like, if you really start thinking about the responsibility of that,
right,
you can really sort of potentially spin out.
Right.
But I try not to. I try to just stay grounded on the ground.
To wrap things up, when it's all said and done, hopefully many years down the line.
Hopefully.
Many acorns.
Lots of oaks.
Lots of oaks.
Yeah.
Thank you. How do you hope to be remembered?
That's the question I end every interview with. I interview everybody we hire, and I try to ask everybody. I don't know if I 100%.
Well, I'm happy that I get to ask it to you.
This might change in a year or two.
Okay, right.
Because, big change. But right now, I'd like to be remembered as somebody who acted with courage and integrity. I'd like to be remembered as somebody who had a good sense of humor. And I'd like to be remembered as somebody who added value. Who added value.
Well, I can tell you've added value to me.
Cool.
And I really, in learning more about your story and having you in front of me now too, it's very inspiring as a young entrepreneur and aspiring to be successful entrepreneur to see someone who came from a lot of the similar, I think, situations growing up, and to want to help, I think, a lot of people, just period. So, I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank you for the work that you do, and the young people that you're inspiring, and not just inspiring, but also helping, and those people will then also turn older one day, and hopefully their kids will learn about how to help themselves and help their children. And so I think that the work that you guys do is much farther than just, my generation or the next generation, but many down the line. So thank you so much.
I think you might have you definitely added an answer on reflection I would give, which is I hope that I inspired some people. I think
for sure.
So yeah, I'm glad if I did, that's wonderful.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you.